All right, hello everyone. Tyler King here with the Denver Gazette live from Big 12 Media Days here in Frisco, Texas, at the Star, the home of the Dallas Cowboys. Their headquarters is where all the events took place the last 2 days. As you can see behind me, everyone's kind of wrapping up, packing up as the events have wrapped up here in Dallas, or in the Dallas area here in Texas, as we get ready for the 2020-25 college football season, which is coming pretty quickly. It's coming up pretty quickly. Next month, August, starts fall camp for all the teams as they get ready for the season openers at the end of August. Colorado obviously has theirs on August 29th, a Friday night game against Georgia Tech at Folsom Field, which should be an awesome opener. And Coach Deion Sanders and 5 of the Buffs players were here in Frisco today representing the team and just kind of talking about everything that's going on in Boulder as the new look roster kind of gets ready for year 3 under Coach Prime, and as they try to look to build off of last year's 9-win season and an appearance in the Alamo Bowl, their first bowl game in 4 years, and a massive step forward for the team. But as you know, was a big talking point today, there is no Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner from last year, and no Shedeur Sanders, one of the top quarterbacks in all of college football last year, who put up pretty gaudy numbers over his 2 years in Boulder. Both those guys, as well as many others that are now in the NFL, are gone. But the Buffs did have a couple guys representing them here today that are preseason all conference players, like Jordan Seaton at left tackle, DJ McKinney at cornerback, and then the Buffs also brought their 2 quarterbacks, Caden Salter, the veteran Liberty transfer, and 5-star freshman Julian Lewis, as well as kicker Alejandro Mata, who's been a staple for the Coach Prime teams dating back to his time at Jackson State. So nice to catch up with all those guys today, and it was nice to hear from Coach Prime himself as well, because as everybody knows, he's been dealing with some health issues lately. Didn't want to talk about it too much today, which is obviously understandable. Maybe we'll hear some more from him in the coming weeks as he gets ready to get back to Boulder and on campus ahead of training camp, which should begin, I think, on July 28th in a couple weeks. The Buffs will report to camp on the 27th, and then practices will get underway on the 28th, as that month window opens before their season opener against Georgia Tech, like I mentioned earlier. So like I said, Coach Prime not really wanting to talk too much about his health today, but did on ESPN and some of the other appearances he made here today. Didn't meet with the local media, specifically just us, but he did on ESPN say he's back, he's doing his duties. That's why he's here today, and he's gearing up to get ready to compete in the Big 12 again this season. After last season was a little bit of a not a disappointment, because making the improvement from 4 to 9 wins it was a huge deal for this program, and Coach Prime knows that. But they were one of those 2 teams that because of tiebreakers didn't get to compete for the Big 12 championship game, despite finishing at the top of the standings. It was Arizona State and Iowa State that played at AT&T Stadium down in Dallas for the Big 12 title, and BYU and Colorado both had to sit at home and watch, and then eventually play each other, ironically, in the Alamo Bowl. But Coach Prime said that the next step for this team is winning the Big 12 championship, and thus obviously getting that automatic bid to the playoff. And who knows, maybe in a couple years the playoff will be expanding to 14 or 16 teams, and the Big 12 will get more than one team in the playoff. That certainly was a talking point this week, with Conference Commissioner Brett Yormark making a pretty bold statement right away this week that they plan right this year to get multiple teams in, after just getting ASU in last year. So it's a big season coming up here for the Big 12, and one that I'm excited to watch from the Buffs perspective and from afar for all the other 15 teams in the conference, because there's some new faces, and there's a lot of returning faces and a lot of returning talent in this league too, particularly at quarterback, which is something I wrote about in yesterday's Denver Gazette, or today's Denver Gazette, I should say, for Wednesday, from day one of the festivities here in Frisco, because there are 9 quarterbacks in this conference, returning quarterbacks, that threw for over 2,400 yards last season. That's over half the league. And whether you look at lists of top quarterbacks in the country or Heisman candidates, those kind of go hand in hand at this point. But any of those lists that you look at this point in the offseason, you're going to find at least 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 Big 12 quarterbacks, because this conference is loaded with QB talent. A lot of those guys were here this week, whether it's TCU's Josh Hoover, ASU's Sam Levitt, obviously, who was a breakout star last season, Sawyer Robertson from Baylor, another guy that I'm super high on. The list goes on and on. Brandon Sorsby from Cincinnati, a guy I talked to yesterday. Texas Tech's Baron Morton. All these guys are really, really experienced players, have a lot of production, like I mentioned, and it's going to make for a really, really interesting league this season. Big 12's obviously been known for quarterback play for many years, whether it's former Oklahoma guys like Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray, Heisman Trophy winners, or Patrick Mahomes, a Texas Tech legend. I mean, there have been a lot of really, really good quarterbacks to come through the Big 12. I mean, just Shedeur Sanders last year. I mean, a lot of big names. And this year there could be 8-9 guys, like I said, and even some newcomers like Caden Salter for the Buffs, who I mentioned was here today talking and representing his team. Devin Dampier, the New Mexico transfer, who's now likely going to be the starter at Utah. He was here as well. So there's a lot of really talented players that the Big 12 is certainly looking to put on display. And from the Buffs perspective, they don't really know who their quarterback is going to be yet. That's obviously been a talking point throughout the offseason. With Salter and Lewis set to continue to battle it out after going head to head in the spring, and now they'll do so again in fall camp in a month or so. So it was fun to catch up with both those guys here today, and the rest of the team and the rest of the guys who represented the team too. It should be, like I said, a very interesting season for the Buffs as they look to build off of the momentum from last year and look to continue building under Coach Prime, as the foundation has kind of been set for these guys now, and it's no longer about the big names and Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders and guys at the top of the NFL draft, but it's more about the collective team, which Coach Prime said he feels a lot better about at this point of the season, which it's easy to see why. They've really beefed up on the offensive line. They've tried to improve at all three levels of the defense as well, which took a massive step forward as a whole entire unit last year under first-year coordinator Robert Livingston. So a lot of positives for the Buffs, and they wanted to talk about all those today as they get ready for the season, which will be a difficult one for sure, as you try to replace a quarterback and wide receiver combo that that was arguably the best in the country last season. So that's nothing easy to replace, but they feel pretty good about what they got, and a lot, as does the rest of the Big 12. Parity was another big talking point this week, with obviously everybody mentioning Arizona State last year being picked to finish last in the preseason media poll and then going on to win the conference. I think CU was 11th in the preseason media poll. BYU was 13th. They finished at the top of the standings, and even Iowa State wasn't even in the top 5. So I mean, it was a really good year for parity last year in the Big 12, and I think they're expecting something similar this year. All the coaches talked about this week about how they feel there's double-digit teams that they could see winning the conference. I mean, for me, I only see 4 that I don't really think are going to compete all that much, and that's mostly because of coaching changes, whether it's at West Virginia, UCF, or just some uncertainty with rosters at Oklahoma State and Arizona, schools that had down years in 2024, and I don't expect to quickly rebound in 2025. But you look at maybe the teams, the 4 teams I had at the top, which I think maybe are in a tier of their own, which I think is Arizona State, Texas Tech, Kansas State and Iowa State. Those were my top 4 teams in my preseason power rankings, which came out in the Denver Gazette earlier this week. I think those 4 teams are really good, but there's a whole slew of teams after that I could also see winning that conference, including CU, and Baylor, TCU, Cincinnati. There's a whole host of teams. Utah as well, I think, is in for a bounce back season. So should be a really, really good year for the league, for the Big 12 again, because I think it is maybe the deepest conference in the country. Maybe not in terms of talent, but in terms of parity and teams that you feel like could win it. I'm sure the 12th best team in the SEC is better than the 12th best team in the Big 12, or same thing goes for the Big 10. But what I'm saying is I really feel like it's maybe the most exciting conference in college football, and I think that was proven to be the case last year, and it could be again this year. And I'm looking forward to covering it with every stop the Buffs have to make, and that starts early in the season with the road game at Houston. They've got the Alamo Bowl rematch against BYU in September, and then they play a lot of those top contenders that I mentioned at some points during the season, whether it's Iowa State, Arizona State, Utah as well, like Kansas State at the end of the season. I mean, it's going to be a tough sledding for the Buffs and a tough schedule, but I think they're ready for it, and it's something I'll be monitoring, as now kind of feels pretty real that football season is around the corner. The media days, which were in Las Vegas the last couple of years, but now here down in Texas, which makes sense for the Big 12, as has more Texas teams than any other conference in the country. So it makes sense for the Big 12 to be here as it gears up for another important season. And you can make sure you can check out all of my coverage from yesterday and today at denvergazette.com. Had a bunch of stories from today. One, of course, on health update for Deion Sanders and kind of his appearance today, and then another story on the 2 quarterbacks that CU brought, and then just some notes as well, because it is still the off season, and a lot of talk about changes and stuff in college football, and I covered all of that yesterday and today. So appreciate everybody for watching, and as we gear for football season, I'll have plenty more content here on the channel, and more preview coverage as the Buffs get ready for a very important 2025 season.